Dr. Anand Ranganathan in the house, people.
So many people say, oh, you call yourself a Darwinian atheist and yet you say you are a proud Hindu. I said, everyone is a Hindu. I said, well, okay, I will judge it, but then I have to be a good judge. I have to be a qualified judge. I can't be judging it right now. So then for the next 10 years, I literally only read. I stopped writing. And then I read all the great authors and all the great books. And I read it in a very, you can say, the OCD manner. So 70 pages every day.
Oh, wow. Okay.
He said the birth of the reader is the death of the writer.
Tell us about when you started speaking. I'm sure that there has to be a strong stimulus that made you start to speak out, and also a certain degree of fearlessness.
So I've put it down to 3 I's. When people ask me, why do you say what you say, without, any fear of what might happen to you. And those 3 I's are insignificance, inconsequence, and irrelevance. 99 out of 100 times, the state is an impediment to critical thinking, to, setting the syllabus, the books, all those things, the curriculum. As far as youngsters are concerned, they are so much more knowledgeable than we ever were at their age. I mean, honestly, I feel embarrassed and ashamed.
Namaste and welcome back to the space. This is Parimal Bharat Vasi, a podcast series, fabulous conversations with fantabulous people. I'm your host, Sri Ranjini. And today, the guest that we have, he literally needs no introduction. If you haven't seen or heard of him, it means you're living under a rock. He's a scientist, an author, and a man with a million hot takes. Very, very happy to welcome you to the show, sir. Dr. Anand Ranganathan in the house, people.
Thank you very much. It's absolutely a pleasure and an honor to be joining you.
So when I told my near and dear ones that I'm interviewing you, they were stupendously excited and they said, we also have some questions we would like to ask. So I actually have questions from a bunch of people. So today's interview is not just me, it's also from voices around me. How does it feel to be Mr. Popular?
Not at all. In fact, I'm a little bit, to tell you the truth, embarrassed about, when people come up to me and they say that they know me or something like that, because at the end of the day, I know what my job is. It has been for the last 25 years after I came back and set up a lab. So I do science. I have a lab. I have students, wonderful collaborators with whom, we're pushing the frontiers in our own way.
Right.
And that is what is 9 to 5, the thing. And then I go back, and that is when the sun goes down, then the writing begins and the television and all that stuff. So, and when people recognize me because of the other part, obviously more than the science part. So I feel a bit embarrassed, but I'm very thankful. I'm very grateful. And when I kind of delved into that area, that wasn't my expertise. I did it so that I could learn a lot. But at the same time, I'm absolutely conscious that I'll never let the people down. Never let them down. It's very easy, It's very easy to profess or conform to something. People always want to appropriate you. After a while, they feel that, if he also were to have the same views as I do,
right,
I will feel much better. But in the long run, I think people, out of respect for the people who hear me, and I'm grateful for that, I'll always be, what I am, and always say what I want to say.
Always avoid confirmation bias, and you will begrudgingly have to accept me for
that. Yes, absolutely. And to be honest with you, it's been almost 15 years since I came into the public eye, writing and now appearing on television and so on and so forth, being an author. They've also realized this. So I have friends cutting across quote unquote party lines, and many from the BJP. I'm seen as a right winger, which is fine. I don't mind. Sanghi and all those epithets that are tagged to you. And many times when I'm critical of the government and whoever merits being critical of, So now they say, "Seh lenge thoda sa," like we'll withstand Anand. Doesn't matter. So they've gotten used to
Now
it.
they've gotten used to
Yes.
it. Very nice, very nice. But what gives you the energy? Because a lot of people, even after a 9 to 5, do not find in themselves the energy to, so I understand you're an academician the first half of the day. And then comes the other half that we all are a lot
Yes.
more, at least we are visibly,
Right.
How do you get the energy?
So I never think about it, to be honest, because I enjoy whatever I take part in. And then it's never as something that is stressful. In fact, it is the exact opposite. So when many people, in fact, just yesterday, someone said, "Sir, how do you take all that stress of television debate?" I said, "What are you talking about? It's the exact opposite. I'm relieving my stress by coming there." I said, "No, that can't be." I said, "That is true, So it's a great stress buster.
Okay.
Of course, I prepare myself before every debate, and I tell them that you must tell me a couple of hours in advance what the topic is. Sometimes it happens that the topic changes suddenly, and then you can't do anything about it, but that's okay. But normally I prepare, I go there, and I've learned this. It's a lesson that has come to me that in a 1-hour debate, a panelist gets not more than 2 or 3 minutes.
Right.
It's astonishing, that if you have 4 panelists, ideally you should get 10-15 minutes, but you get 2-3 minutes. And if you're not prepared, if you're just there to while away your time or somebody else's time, 2 minutes go like that,
And some people, they think that those 2-3 minutes is
Yes.
more for their personal visibility than to actually...
Absolutely. So, for example, you can interject someone, then there will be a flurry of invectives to and fro, and then 2 minutes are gone, and the anchor also doesn't mind, shifts to the other thing.
Yeah.
But those 2 minutes are precious. They can fill in almost, you can say, 2 minutes of facts, of humor, of punchline, of what you want to say, if you want to really convey the message.
Right.
So I learned that, so I don't care about a lot of times when people deliberately want to get into a controversy or provoke me or something. I need to say what I want to say. So, it's actually a greatest stress busters.
Oh, wow.
In fact, doctors should prescribe. Don't take medicines, come on TV debates,
Oh, nice. So a lot of people say that science and religion are two sides of the same coin because both seek to understand the universe. Have you felt that? Or is that something that's a little too jarring for you as a man of science?
No, let me explain. It's a very beautiful question. And permit me to take some time in explaining it. When you say religion, you have to categorize it. Whether it is Hinduism, that personally I don't see it as 100% religion, or whether it is Abrahamic religions that are, of course, religions. And I've always believed that Hinduism is a way of life. And we are all, so many people say, "Oh, you call yourself a Darwinian atheist, and yet you say you are a proud Hindu." I said, everyone is a Hindu. Civilizationally, we are Hindus. Our philosophy, modern way of life, thinking stems from Hinduism. All those amazing things that were written and thought of thousands of years ago. We are what we are because of that. And I've always felt that in Hinduism, religion aspect of it is an offshoot of the way of life.
Right.
Whereas in Islam or Christianity or Abrahamic religions, way of life is an offshoot of religion.
Okay.
So it follows that, way of life or ways of life, they change as humans progress from one century to the other. So many things that we do now, we did not do 2000 years ago. Yeah, of course, things have progressed, evolved, or you can say devolved, whatever it may be. So Hinduism is more amenable to change because during the progression in this evolutionary time scale, you pick up mutations like, theory of evolution in science you do. And those mutations are the ones that allow you to survive, to adapt to a changing environment. So Hinduism is much more adaptable to changes around you. And you see it all around, everything is a philosophy that is destined to be perfect for adapting to an environment. The other way around, when the way of life is an offshoot of religion. Now, religion, the meaning of religion per se is a dogma that you have to adhere to. And those ways of life, that means have to adhere to that dogma, which is 2000 years old or 1300 years old, whatever the case may be. And the dogma doesn't change. The dogma, in fact, in Islam, dogma cannot change. You are prohibited. Even a full stop cannot be added or taken away from, the holy book, Holy Quran. So if your way of life is to be ordered to be based on that, you're not going to change. You're not going to mutate. You're not going to, as they say, many people say, why doesn't reform come in the Abrahamic religion? You are forbidden to reform it. So in that aspect, I don't find a lot of difference between science and the scientific aspects of the Hinduism way of life. So when you said science and religion, there is a small distinction that needs to be made.
Fair enough, yes.
Whereas science and Islam, for example, or a lot of aspects of Islam, Christianity, are antithetical. Quran believes that moon was split in half, earth is flat, Adam and Eve were formed of black mud. Now, obviously, all those things, science says earth was formed in 6 days. That is what Genesis believes. And the seventh day, God rested. All those things have been proven to be wrong. We can either continue to believe it or we believe in science. So there is no conformity, if I can put it that way. But Hinduism is different, and many people, now the other day I shocked some people. They said, "What are you?" I said, "I'm a Hindu fundamentalist," and they were like, "What?" And I said, "Yes, because what are the fundamentals of Hinduism? They are the most beautiful fundamentals. It's all questioning. Who are we? Where did we come from? Those are the fundamentals of science."
Right.
According to me, there are only two questions worth asking and answering in science. Where did we come from on earth? And where did we come from, as in where did the universe come from? And that is exactly what the Hindu philosophy asks. It's all accepting, it's kind, it's empathetic towards souls, it's pure philosophy on one layer, and it is asking, questioning, and it is so self-denigrating. We are nothing, and everything has quote-unquote God. Every life form is important, If those are fundamentals, I'm proud to be a Hindu fundamentalist, That's what I say.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Actually, Adi Shankaracharya apparently would tell his disciples that if two sets of disciples were to argue a given topic, this side must first re-encapsulate the arguments of that side before presenting their own argument. Correct. So that it is not just about questioning, it is also about imbibing.
Oh, absolutely.
And so I found that really beautiful. Yes. And just as you were talking about mutation, I've read very interesting things about how, we went from invertebrates and then like how man evolved. Yes. And when you look at like Matsya, Kurma.
Yes, that's
so you've read about
very true. It's uncanny.
Yeah.
But there is a slight difference in the sense that, of course, the you can say that the resemblance of how we came into being, the evolution, and you look at the Dasavatara, it's uncanny, it's beautiful. A little bit changes here and there, of course, that's granted. But the proof when it comes, that has come from science. So, and I say that all the time, we are an amazing civilization. Just like Ramanujam, we had equations. Ramanujam came up with equations without proving them. We've come up through Hindu philosophy by espousing philosophical treatises or axioms without wanting the need to prove them. And I've learned to appreciate that. Earlier, I used to get very vexed that where is the proof for this theorem?
Right.
How can you say that this theorem is true without proving it? And then slowly I've kind of started to appreciate this. And I think it might be a bit whimsical to bring in this, but one of the most difficult problems to solve was the Fermat's last theorem. It's very famous. I think 17th century mathematician Fermat. And he has this, what is called his last theorem. And it took 400 years for scientists to prove it. I think it's x to the power of n plus y to the power of n equals z to the power of n, where n is greater than 2 or 3. I can't quite remember it.
Right.
And after 400 years, a Cambridge scientist proved it. And it was basically of, 100 pages. The proof was worth 100 pages. But when Fermat thought of it, he said, I have come to an amazing proof of this, but unfortunately the margin is too small for me to write. So you can imagine how people approach, the same problem with different routes. Here was someone who used 100 pages to solve it. And here Fermat said, well, it's a little too small to write. Maybe half a page would, do it. So, one must also learn to appreciate the conclusion without knowing the route to the conclusion. And I have learned to appreciate that.
So in recent times, I've really come to appreciate astrology. So I don't know if I had the good fortune of seeing the right astrologers, but it has helped me with a bump or two. And I know that there are people who are still very skeptical, especially when we compare astrology and astronomy.
Yes.
They get really worked up.
Mm-hmm.
But then I also read a few scriptures and I was very amazed to find mentions like, for example, Jupiter is called Jyeshtha. And Jyeshtha literally means the biggest one.
Right.
So then if it is not interrelated, then how come we do have scriptures from many, many moons ago where we are able to identify these mentions? And how do you see astrology and astronomy?
Sorry to say, one of those skeptics about astrology.
Okay.
But this is something that as a student of science, I always believe that, never discount anything unless there is substantive proof that discounts it. And all the proof must be put on the table. To give you a great example, 100 years ago, we had no idea where did the universe come from. In fact, ironically, it was a Belgian priest, who propounded the Big Bang theory.
Right.
The irony is delicious. And almost immediately, the church accepted it. And it's strange because the church believes in God, that God created everything. And here someone was saying that the universe was created by Big Bang. And then they said, no, look, this is exactly what the Genesis says, that in the beginning there was light. So the Big Bang created...
It was actually the light.
Yes. But then, of course, in the last 100 years, there have been so many proofs that have come that have almost authenticated, or let's say fortified, the Big Bang theory, the Hubble redshift being one of them, that now the proof is so much that it's very difficult to, kind of believe that God existed and God created Earth in 6 days. But at the same time, let me say it, I'm not a militant atheist. I don't want people to, I don't want to force people to believe it's on the table. If you want to believe it, that's great. If not. As an example, the inventor of the MRI believes that the earth was created in 6 days.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And, so do you think he's not a scientist? That's not true. So science has an element of philosophy that gives you a very free space to think of things that, either you can appropriate or you think they are right or wrong, but that freedom is important, let's put it, this way, 99.9% of the world believes that God created humans.
Right.
Many scriptures, all scriptures believe so. But if you look at, for example, does science disprove it? I would say it doesn't disprove it emphatically. But to my satisfaction, beyond reasonable doubt, it does put its point of view across
Provide
the
an
table.
alternative.
Yes. And if that alternative can be reproduced in the lab, then it fortifies that theory. And it's all very well for someone to say, oh, I'm an atheist. Many people say so. But I believe that the next logical question is, you have to explain why you are an atheist. It's not just good enough for you to say, I don't believe in God, which is what a lot of communists do. So that's why I always make a distinction that I'm a Darwinian atheist as opposed to, the commie version of the atheist. So I have to explain, not just for myself, but to others, why am I an atheist? Why do I not believe in God? And it is, over the last century, maybe a little bit more than that, that science has provided reproducible proof that God possibly does not exist. And that is the reason why, starting from Stanley Miller's famous experiment of 1953, where he reproduced the early Earth's atmosphere.
Right.
You had the voltaic discharge, you had water, you had, the gases that he said were possibly present. And then, at the end of the day, he got those primordial elemental blocks, nucleic acids, amino acids, HCN, KCN, so many other things. And then that was the first reproducible, you can say, hint that perhaps life could have originated without godly intervention. But then where do you go from those elemental building blocks to where we are today? And then came, for example, Jacques Jostak, another Nobel laureate, and his proto-cell reproducible theory that is that from those elemental building blocks in hydrothermal vents or somewhere, you had these clay lattices, and there the nucleic acids got strung up. And you had a primitive cell that did not have a genetic information that was being able to reproduce itself and give you proteins and amino acids. But you had the primitive nucleic acids folding in such a way that they could act as proteins, the RNA world.
Right.
So that again, that's the next step.
Pushed
that
it another
frontier. Then came in the 80s, William Stemmer and his sexual PCR that told you that you can rapidly accumulate helpful mutations. And those mutations will help you adapt to the new environment, because our environment is changing every millisecond. Right now, when I took a breath in a different way, the organisms that are there in the air, they felt a different environment. Would they be able to adapt to that? That is left to them. So when you had that sexual PCR and he was able to show that through diversity, accumulating mutations, you're able to withstand what evolution took 1 million years to do in 1 hour. That was the third. They pushed a little bit more.
Right.
And then the final nail was the genome sequencing. When they sequenced the human genome in 2000, and then they sequenced the genome of the chimpanzee, they found it was 99.4% identical. That itself told you a common origin. And then, of course, E. coli, bacteria were sequenced, viruses were sequenced, and they all had common housekeeping proteins and genes, that told us of our, it's almost like what in physics you can say a space-time singularity. Out here, you had a single cell, even before that, a protocell, giving rise to what we are today. Now, once you have that as a theory, alternative theory to God, and that theory is time and time again reproducible. I, as a scientist, would believe in that. But again, as I said, the inventor of MRI, who's a much bigger scientist than I would ever be, he believes that Earth was created in 6 days. So, to each his own.
Fair enough. I actually want to ask you, I caught Hindus in Hindu Rashtra,
right.
A very eclectic book. What are the most unique reactions you've had after the book's release?
Yes. So in fact, it was born out, you can say, out of my ignorance. Hence,
that's a very humble way of putting it.
No, and I think that is the secret of the book's success.
Okay.
And the reason for that is that I was like a billion other Hindus, almost oblivious that it is not the other community that is shouting from the rooftops that we are being discriminated against. It is actually the majority community. I didn't know, so I called them 8th class citizens. In fact, on one debate, I called them 2nd class citizens because I came across a discrimination that was happening only to Hindus, the state control of Hindu temples. And then a couple of weeks later, there was something else. And I said, hang on a second, this is another discrimination that is happening only against Hindus. So I called them 2nd class citizen, 3rd class citizen. And then it went on and on and on. And I learned so much. Vishnu Jain and Hari Jain ji and, all those people are fighting cases. Then I came across Waqf Act, Places of Worship Act. I didn't know all these things existed, And then I thought, I gave it as a lecture. And then many people said, in fact, during that lecture, that this should come out as a book because people need to know this. And there's only so much you can talk about going at various places. And that was the genesis. So this is basically, the book is born out of my ignorance. And that is what has resonated with a lot of readers because they were as ignorant as I am,
But how has the reaction been?
It's astonishing, honestly. I used to actually think that gone is that age where people would read, which is largely true. And it's not a criticism of today's generation or Gen Z, as one calls them. It is the medium has changed. The medium is almost entirely audio-visual. And that is so much more powerful than the written word.
Text, yeah.
Yes. The written word changed a lot of things that people adapted to. And likewise, now this generation has adapted almost completely to the audio-visual. It's, in fact, the attention span is getting shorter and shorter and shorter. Now, earlier people would, be very attentive to a 1 hour video. Now it's reels and so many.
Yeah,
but I hope they watch this this podcast,
No,
which
it's
would be
true.
longer.
I mean,
But
like we were talking about empirical evidence, data analysis,
Yes.
consumption analysis shows that
Yes.
it is smaller pieces of information that's there.
Correct.
On the one hand, there's attention span, there's also retention.
Yes.
So even when you're consuming something that's 30
Yes.
to 60
Brilliant,
seconds,
yes.
how much of it really
Yes.
gets retained?
Yes.
And I have to ask you, because you do deal with students
Yes.
day in and day out,
Yes.
how do you feel that has changed over the years?
Oh, it has changed almost beyond recognition. But here is one thing that people of my generation and generation previous to me, they think the younger generation is dumb. That it is the exact opposite. Trust me. They know so much. It's just that sometimes one can accuse them of information overload, because obviously I think on average, 3-4 hours every day,
Right.
they are staring at screens and information is coming all the time. But their mind is also sifting through that information, and it's a very proactive rather than just reactive attitude that they have now. Let me explain. 30 years ago, I would read an editorial, for example, in the Hindu or something, and I'll get disgusted by it. What is this guy saying? But the maximum I could do was to, roll up the newspaper and fling it against the wall. Right now, somebody spots a fake news or fake narrative or something. Immediately that person goes on Twitter and says, broadcast, this is a lie. So, which one is the work of someone more intelligent? Someone who was voiceless, speechless, or a youngster now who would learn from interacting? So the medium has changed, the generation has changed, but this is something that can only be and should be encouraged. Having said that, to come back to the question, because I thought reading habits are not what they are now, people won't read this book or this book won't sell. So within, I think it's 1.5 years, it's been 110,000 copies.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And of course I said, look, because it was through my ignorance, so whatever proceeds of the book that I get, I will give it to Hindu causes. So till now it's 12.5 lakhs that I have, the royalties that I have.
Yeah. Oh,
so,
that's wonderful.
Yeah. So temples, Hindu refugees from Pakistan, Bangladeshi refugees, parents who were refugees, their children are differently abled. I think the last one went to them. So,
That's
small
fabulous.
contribution.
Yeah. Also, I feel like it's also an outreach to bring people back into the fold.
So
right?
that also could be one of the reasons, a lot of readers feel that, because the royalties are going towards Hindu causes, I'm also, by buying the book, I'm contributing
towards something. Yeah. Absolutely. Actually, speaking of, in your first book, The Land of the Wilted Rose.
That's right, yeah.
It's kind of a satirical take on what happens if Indians were to go colonize England.
Yes.
But unfortunately, I still feel that we have some colonial hangovers.
Yes.
What are the core colonial hangovers that you have seen around you?
Mostly it is to do with an inferiority complex, having a sense of being validated by the West. And it's been drilled into us. So you have discriminatory welfare schemes for the minorities, and then it switched to wokefare, where you would shore up the glories of the civilizational aspects of, you can say, not just the invaders but external factors, and you would ridicule our own civilization, which is what the wokes do. So from welfare to wokefare, and it has naturally progressed to now warfare. But this wokefare is what has led us to have this kind of inferiority complex and colonized mind, and education is one aspect of it. And as I say, nations weaken not because of their past, but rather by how they are taught it. And for 70 years we've been taught to glorify things that or people who are hell-bent on destroying us, the invaders and the conquerors and all those, and deliberately hide the glorious aspects of our own civilization, of our own warriors. But slowly people amazing people, and I'm very lucky and blessed to have them as friends. They've come out and they've kind of drawn the curtains, and they've exposed Indians to the reality. Vikram Sampath is one, Jay Sai is another.
Yeah.
So they are the ones who are at the vanguard of opening our eyes. It's not that they are the first ones. The good thing about social media and today's environment is that people know them. There have been so many before. Sitaram Goelji was one in the age where whatever he said was considered so provocative. Either his books were banned. He was even arrested at one point of time,
right.
I think in the Calcutta Quran petition case. And he was left bitter and frustrated because, there was no mode for, his voice to reach millions of people.
Or for him to also feel acknowledged by people
absolutely.
to whom it
Absolutely,
right?
Absolutely, The late Bhairappa ji is one example. It is only in the last 5 or 6 years that people got to know, what a doyen he was. Of course, people from Karnataka knew him more than the rest of the country, but the rest of the country had no idea because his voice was suppressed. And the people whose voice was amplified were these fraud historians, and there are so many, countless, that you can't just name them, the Thappers of the world, the Jhas of the world. And they wrote so many lies that we were burdened with trying to sift through those and not care about the reality of our civilization to such an extent that even the governments that we feel are pro-Hindu or Hindu-friendly, they are reticent, they are a bit circumspect to make those changes. For example, Nalanda was destroyed by Bakhtiyar Khilji,
right.
And Nalanda took 1 year to burn. 9 million books were burnt. I mean, it basically wiping away the entire civilization. And the closest railway station to Nalanda is called Bakhtiyarpur Station. We have named the person who burnt it, named a station on him. Which other country would allow you to do it? I mean, is there a Hitler Road in Tel Aviv?
Right.
We had an Aurangzeb Road in the heart of Delhi. And, it took, of course, a couple of years for the Modi Sarkar to change at least the Aurangzeb Road. Aurangzeb Lane took about 10 years. But Bakhtiyarpur still exists. We still have glorification of someone like Saint Xavier, who was hell-bent upon destroying Hinduism. Or so many other examples, So, to cut a long story short, I hope this goes away. But, I mean, people like Sai and Vikram are the ones who are going to take this, baton forward from Sitaram Goelji and others. Yeah.
How wonderful. Yeah. Now, speaking of the new voices of, of this generation, and I think a few more decades, I think they will also rally more troops.
Right.
Tell us about when you started speaking. I'm sure that there has to be a strong stimulus that made you start to speak out, and also a certain degree of fearlessness that made you really take the mic and prepare to engage in this kind of a conversation.
So as I said, I came into the public eye when I started writing. 2010 it was. 2011 my first book came out, The Land of the Wilted Rose. That sank with a trace detected only by the near and dear ones. But, that's no worries. But very early on, in the process, because I was not a writer, and it was very late, in my life that I took to writing. Before that, I was a scientist and still am. But, I mean, what I mean to say is that my mind was not involved in the process of writing at all.
Only to publish scientific.
That's right. That's right. Where a scientific paper is 4 pages, and it's 2 pages are references, it's possibly not more than 1,000 words.
Right.
And that too, it's highly technical. So I had no experience of this, and I wrote a page in 2000 it was, and then I looked at it and it looked all right to me. But then if one is one's own judge, then of course you would be kinder, to yourself. So I said, but I dare not show it to anyone for fear of ridicule and, mocking. So I said, well, who's to judge this then? I said, well, okay, I will judge it, but then I have to be a good judge. I have to be a qualified judge. I can't be judging it right now. So then for the next 10 years, I literally only read. I stopped writing. And then I read all the great authors and all the great books. And I read it in a very, you can say, the OCD manner. So 70 pages every day.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And if it was 69 one day, it would be 71 the next. So it's a bizarre
regimented.
Yes, totally regimented. And then after 10 years, I thought, okay, I've read a lot. I revisited that page, and that page still looked respectable.
Oh, nice.
That is when I finished that book, and it came out and it was noticed. And then, one of the journalists, Madhu Trehan, she was starting a new company. And then she said, why don't you write for us? I've seen, your book and all that. That is how the writing process started. And during that 10 years, I learned something that has stayed with me, not just for writing, but for everything in life. And it is so profound, and it is encapsulated in one sentence. That is, by the way, what I learned, that what writing can do. I thought only scientists are capable of, that one spark.
Condensing it.
Yes. But writers can do it, but it's sheer genius. So this writer called Barthes, French writer, he said the birth of the reader is the death of the writer. The birth of the reader is the death of the writer. The day the writer starts thinking about what the reader might feel about what I have written, or let me add this chapter so that it placates this community. Let me gain readership by adding a little bit about that culture.
Right.
So the birth of the reader, that's the death of me. So the moment I read it, and after I've been published, it has never ever been my intention to ever conform to, so that the readers are born. Because that'll be the death of me. And there are literally millions of people who do that.
Yeah.
Nothing wrong in it. I think Jeffrey Archer, Lord Archer, as if now, he proclaims it openly.
Yes.
Says, I want to include that community in my thing. So I wrote a chapter for that community.
Appeasing that.
I don't want to offend people, so let me not talk about this. So many writers, self-censorship is the norm now. I thought, well, this is not my vocation. I don't earn through it. And an Indian writer would never earn through his writing unless you would Chetan Bhagat or Amish, or someone. So it was never my intention that this be my profession. I was very happy, still am what I do. And I think that's very important. You straddle two stools, and you're not worried about what the public thinks of, this persona side of this thing. So I think that is, you can say that put the seed of, it's a grand word, fearless or whatever, but that's the way I react. But interesting you asked that question, because moving on, and it's been 15 years since I've been writing, I've kind of thought about this thing called fearlessness. Why should it arise, and why are people wanting me to say my peace of mind? And so many people come to me and said, this is exactly what I wanted to say. But you put it in words, I didn't have the courage to say it. In fact, I don't know whether it's appropriate or not, but just 2 days ago, I was privileged enough to go to the Sai Gram.
Right.
And I had an amazing conversation with Sadhguru ji. And, I told him a lot of things that next day people said, my God, we wanted to say this, but, we didn't have the courage to say. I said, this is the saddest day of my life, visiting this place. And he said, what do you mean? I said, I feel disgusted that this is not the rest of India.
The rest of, So true.
And why are people so pleased that this is a pilot project? For how long would we be satisfied with pilot projects, And as a scientist, if you see an experiment succeeding in lab, by definition, you must be able to reproduce it on a grander scale, scale it up. So, this is, the campus is exactly what India needs to be, and it's not. And that displeases me. That makes me sad. That makes me frustrated. And I said this all to Sadhguru, and next day people said, oh my God, somebody said, we wanted to whistle. But I don't know whether that's fearlessness. It's just, I say what I feel, and,
It's also the courage to own your truth.
I don't see it as courage at all, honestly. I really don't. And but to come back to, it's just completing the circle. We began with, talk about Hinduism, and a lot of qualities that enter your subconscious mind, because you grow up as a Hindu, civilizational Hindu. And so I've put it down to 3 I's. When people ask me, why do you say what you say, without, any fear of what might happen to you. And those 3 I's are insignificance, inconsequence, and irrelevance.
Okay.
Insignificance, that in the scheme of things, we as human beings are so insignificant.
Okay.
That is what is one of the seeds of Hindu philosophy,
right.
Jain philosophy, that what are we talking about? There's one human being and there are trillions
a speck in the universe.
A speck, beyond a speck, there are trillions of stars and God knows what else. And here we are worried about, what people may think, what we say, And the second is the inconsequence. And there I believe in, what Albert Camus, laid forth his philosophy, which is incredible, in his book the essay called Myth of Sisyphus. And it begins with such a profound, I spoke about one sentence can change the way you think.
Yeah.
And this, I would say, one of the most profound first sentences of any book. And Camus begins, says, the only philosophical problem remaining today is that of suicide. He said, why don't humans commit suicide? Why don't we? And he got this analogy of Sisyphus. Sisyphus was a Greek character who cheated death. And that incensed the Greek gods so much that they cursed him. And they said every morning you would wake up and you would push a rock up a hill. And by evening that rock would be on top of a hill and the rock would tumble down. And the next morning you would pick that rock up and push it again. And you would do it till eternity. And he said, we are all Sisyphuses. We are all pushing a rock. Somebody is physically pushing a rock. Somebody is comfortable while pushing it. Somebody is using a crane to push it. But every morning we do the same thing, push a rock. And every night, and it's so true. In night, when I switch off the light, I said, next morning I'm going to be doing the same thing. Exactly the same. I know what I'm going to be doing. So why don't I just end it? It is of no consequence what I do. Why don't I realize it? Why is the world working? And you see the analogy. I drive in the morning to the lab and I see a cow that's woken up, that is bang in the middle of the road. And it's going to sit there for 5 hours, stare at nothing. Why? And I park my car and I see a dog that's woken up and it's just lying on the road, refusing to move. But it's awake. And it knows next day, in the night, it will sleep. Next day, it'll do the same. We are the same. We've just made our lives more comfortable. We made this world. 10,000 years ago, we were like any other animal, Yeah.
We've added creature comforts.
We just added comforts.
Yeah.
But look at the irony. When you talk to a person, a hotshot fat cat or a millionaire, billionaire, you ask him, what do you really want to do? He says, I want to go to a forest and spend a week there. I want to listen to the sound of the waves or the gentle whistle of the trees in the mountains. He wants to go back from where we actually emerged. We are exactly the same. And then, so this question, why don't we just end our lives? And I don't agree with the solution of Camus.
Right.
He says that Sisyphus, that the last sentence is also legendary. He says, Sisyphus must find happiness in pushing the rock. But I don't find happiness there because science tells us, and this is where science comes in, that there is no happiness in doing this, in living this life. There's no. So that's the second I.
Okay.
The third I is, I hope nobody experiences it, that I experienced it, is irrelevance.
Okay.
That is that I nearly died. I said my goodbye to my near and dear ones. I had a heart attack and it was a Widowmaker artery. It's called the Widowmaker, the LAD. It was 100% blockage, 12% survival chance. I struggled, then I gave up and I said my goodbye and then I survived. And I survived. And then I went back after my days in the hospital and I looked at everything that was my possession, all those books and wealth, whatever it may be, clothes and everything. I said, everything was gone in a click of a finger. It was just gone. I'd said my goodbye. And if I don't change now, if I start worrying about, what that other person might feel, I was dead. This is a blessing. If that doctor had not done what he's done within 30 minutes, I had said my goodbye, So if I don't change now, then I am pathetic. I don't deserve to live. So these 3 eyes are the ones that keep me going. I'm sorry I've blabbered on, but...
No. Very interesting and very introspective.
Yes, so it takes in elements of Hindu philosophy. It takes in elements of existentialism, Camus, science, and of course, the worthlessness of existence and the irrelevance of futility. That's right. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. That's a lot for us to chew on and introspect. Yeah. Well, I have to, I can't help but ask, you are a family man.
Yes.
So, how would you feel inconsequential? Or because I feel like as much as we are, people, individuals, we also have attachments, we also have bonds.
Yes.
How could
I see ourselves as a bunch of cells. I've thought about exactly this. There are days that go by when I don't talk to anyone. In 9 to 5, this is an office and I love being tucked away, and you keep thinking about these things. So yeah, exactly the question that you asked. So, but if you think of yourself as nothing more, nothing less than a bunch of cells, that is what E. coli are doing, bacteria in a test tube. What is this attachment to something that is also a bunch of cells? It's easier said than done.
Yeah.
But we've changed in the last 10,000 years. We weren't like this, We were like any other dog or a cat or an animal. We were in the forest. We would get up in the morning, not sure whether we would survive the day. We would hunt for our food. We were exactly like what we were, and we've made all this. For what? I don't understand. For spending that time that was allotted to us by science, or whatever you may call it, that time was allotted to us even when we were forest dwellers. You can say our life expectancy has increased. But many people would doubt that as well. Our life has come into danger precisely because hundreds of factors have come in that are making sure that our life is shortened. Pollution, contamination,
vehicles,
everything else, If, who knows, without medical intervention, if we were dwelling in the forest, we might live to be 75, 80. I have no idea, So the fact of the matter is, ideally speaking, I don't have any attachments to anyone because I am a bunch of cells as another one. But I am a social animal in that sense. I do have attachments, but it's a difficult stage to reach to. People find me very cold and unemotional, but that's the way I am. Because I know I'm gone tomorrow. So it's even if people hate me or love me, just see me as cells, collection of cells. See me no different from any other life form. That's what I would say.
Difficult, but...
Very difficult, yes. But you see it happening all around the world. And, Jainism, removed from science, I would say it comes closest to, removed from spirituality, it comes closest to science. You look at these billionaire giant diamond merchants. Suddenly, one fine day, they renounce everything and walk away. And the idea is to never even meet your family ever again. They pluck their hair out. They don't eat anything that is to be plucked. They eat only things that are fallen. Why renounce? Maybe they have got the answer. Kavariyas, for example, what are they doing? Maybe they have the answer. The more complicated we are making our living, we are thinking we're making it very comfortable, but we are making it complicated. And is that helping us? We don't know. We've become very robotic in our thinking, So this generation, my generation, we almost know how we are to lead our life. We were told to lead a life like this, and we're leading like
prescribed
that.
manner.
You need a car, you need a house, you need an AC. You're conforming to something.
True.
You're walking on this conveyor belt. I don't know, leading where?
Lovely. So you've traveled across the world. Now, a little departure from this. In recent times, we've seen big brands that have come and utilized workmanship, designs from India, and have not cited their source of inspiration, have not perhaps even, financially given the right degree of remuneration that was,
of course,
or that ought to have been given, and still continue to profit from it. Even as recent as yesterday, I saw something on the runway that went uncredited.
That Prada used the
Kolhapuris,
chappal.
and then Dior used these lovely embroideries that are done in Lucknow. Now,
that's right.
We know that there exists a system for geotagging.
Yes.
However, there is no regulated system to patent certain indigenous crafts and skills that are so rooted to the country.
Yes.
What can possibly be a systemic change by which cultural exploitation doesn't happen? It's one thing for cultural appropriation, which, there is exchange, we always have that. But cultural exploitation is where it gets very weird, right?
Yeah. So this is a great question, but it's a difficult one to answer because it also has another side, altruistic side to it. And as a scientist, I feel I must discuss both sides.
Okay.
So you are absolutely right. When you had a business conglomerate whose overarching interest is to mint billions, comes along, Prada, for example, and of course takes away the value system, the philosophy that went into it, the culture that went into creating that amazing thing, not just Kolhapuri chappal, but so many other things. So many other things. And doesn't give credit to it. The people whose idea it is, they don't get those millions and Prada does. So that's clearly wrong. There should be laws that stop it or that don't allow it to happen. So I am for it. Absolutely, I'm for it. But now I switch to the other side. And there have been such beautiful examples in science. Starting from, I would say, what is, in fact, the first page of my PhD thesis.
Okay.
For this immortal phrase from Rigveda. Something again so profound. Says, all that is not shared is lost.
All that is not shared is lost. Okay.
It's amazing how you can see, goose pimples coming. How single sentences, they have years of knowledge crammed into that. So I feel as a scientist, I think it's important to share the knowledge. And they've been two of the greatest inventions I can think of. Three, in fact, that have saved billions and, of lives. Salk's polio vaccine, for example, he didn't patent it. People asked him, why don't you? He said, can you patent the sun?
Yeah.
The World Wide Web. I think Lee, I forget Tim Berners-Lee, he didn't patent that. Fred Sanger did not patent DNA sequencing. Fellow would have been a trillionaire by now.
Yeah.
And monoclonal antibody, Miles Teal, he didn't patent that, And they asked him that why did he said this is for humanity. So there is the other side that is altruistic, that humans are there to help other human beings. But as you correctly said, they are there to help human beings, not to exploit them. So both things must go hand in hand. As long as you know both sides, it's very important.
But what can be done on a policy level? Because
absolutely,
we can't stop people from coming and, like exploring our country. And we are very rich and diverse. So it is not a miracle that they come here for inspiration.
Of course. So I think the government has to take steps. It's great that, the social media, the outrage that happened and the Prada guys were forced to come down to Kolhapur, was it, and, interact with the people. So they were shamed into it. But 30, 40 years ago, nobody would have said anything, And that is when, if you remember, turmeric example happened, basmati used to happen.
Bitter leaves.
Things are changing. But the government needs to be more active on this.
On this front.
Absolutely.
Now, top 3 reasons why we must catch your next book, Forgotten Heroes, Indian Science. Tell us.
So it's co-authored. Sheetal and I have written it. It's taken 7 years to write.
Oh, wow.
Yes. And the genesis, in fact, strangely enough, was, of course, through my, as it happened, my pedigree. Both my parents were scientists. So I got to know of a lot of people and their incredible contribution to science. And at that point of time, I didn't really think that, the nation's forgotten them. I didn't know much about them, And G.N. Ramachandran was one. And I would routinely, I knew because my parents knew him. And he should have got 3 Nobel Prizes, not just one. The astounding discoveries that he made on phi-psi plot that is still used to determine the secondary structure of proteins, or collagen triple helix, or tomography, CAT scan, the algorithm for that. So, And he didn't even forget about Nobel or Bharat Ratna. He didn't even get one Padma, And you have on the other side these furzy journalists and hoteliers and all these frauds getting Padma Shri, Padma Bhushan, whatever.
Right.
So that kind of said that what is this country doing? A nation that, does not reward its living, cannot progress further, and forgets its past. And then, as it happened, we were in Kolkata as a family, and our taxi passed this Upendra Brahmachari Sarani. A street is Sarani in this thing. And who is this person? And then I read more about, this. So till now, the only viable drug that has saved millions of lives invented by an Indian in India was Upendra Brahmachari's urea still being against Dushmania, Kala Azar, 100 years ago,
Wow.
And we didn't know, except for, a street being named.
Yeah.
Nobody knew. So these are fascinating stories within a story. So this is not a hagiography of these 4 or 5 scientists, not their biography, but in fact, the story of India, their story in the India of their times. Right. So each story is a story within a story within a story. For example, the birth of forensic fingerprinting was in India.
Wow. Okay.
And Scotland Yard stole it. The first blood pressure lowering drug was invented by an Indian. Siba Gaigi, used it. So many other stories like that. So I hope the younger generation, the powers that be read that book and realize that these are the people that we've forgotten, that the country needs to remember. And if I can end on a controversial note, we only have one person on the note currency, Mahatma Gandhi. I think it is time for us to celebrate the amazing legacy of these forgotten heroes. UK does it. And you have Charles Darwin on the currency. You had, so many other scientists on the currency, writers, Dickens is on the currency, so many others. Why do we only have one person, And I think S.N. Bose, J.C., so many others, incredible people. So that is what this book is all about.
How nice. Now, before we conclude, a few words for our youngsters,
yes,
whom I know that you love spending time with.
Oh, yes.
And I know that there are various education systems in India today,
yes,
but how could we make them critical thinkers for tomorrow?
Right. I think it's just, we need to realize one very small thing. We don't need to intervene. Honestly.
Back off.
Yes. It's unbelievable how the state believes that it can improve things. State can not improve things.
Okay.
State is a burden. We must do this, we must. Nahin. 99 out of 100 times, the state is an impediment to critical thinking. To, setting the syllabus, the books, all those things, the curriculum. As far as youngsters are concerned, they are so much more knowledgeable than we ever were at their age. Honestly, I feel embarrassed and ashamed. I knew absolutely nothing. I was like Jon Snow. You know nothing at their age. They're so much more intelligent. They're so much more creative. It's just that the state is shackling them, at every stage. You go around Bangalore, you see so much creativity. But you look at the avenues that we are giving, the state is giving for them to exploit that creativity. So state should back off. Absolutely.
Thank you so much for taking time off your schedule.
Not at all.
And for sharing this with us. This is a series of conversations, right, and with each speaker, it takes on a different flavor.
Yes.
And with you, of course, we've seen you over the years, and we've seen, a penny for your thoughts would probably garner us a lot.
No.
But we're glad that you've been here, and we saw
pleasure.
A side to you that I haven't experienced before. That's lovely to have you.
Thank you so much.
Namaste.
Take care. Namaskar.